Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and before you dismiss that pocket change as just worthless metal, let me tell you something that might completely change your life. What if I told you that one innocent-looking nickel sitting in your cup holder, your junk drawer, or even that old coin jar in your garage could be worth a staggering $56 million? Yes, you heard that right, 56 million, and I'm not talking about some ancient Roman artifact locked behind museum glass. I'm talking about a 1996 D nickel, a coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, a coin that could have passed through your very own hands while you were buying groceries or getting gas, completely unaware that you were holding a fortune that could buy mansions, yachts, private islands, and set up generations of your family for life. Now, I know what you're thinking: how can something so ordinary, so common-looking, be worth more than most lottery jackpots, more than what people earn in multiple lifetimes combined? Well, stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will not only shock you but might just send you running to check every single nickel you own. And here's the kicker: this isn't even the only fortune hiding in plain sight, because after I tell you everything about this 1996 D monster, I've got two more nickels to share with you, one worth 24 million and another worth 13 million, and trust me, the stories behind these coins are so incredible, so unbelievable, that you won't want to miss a single second of what's coming next. The 1996 D nickel represents one of the most extraordinary chapters in American numismatic history, and to understand why this particular coin commands such astronomical prices, we need to dive deep into the fascinating world of mint errors, collector obsession, and pure historical significance. Let's start with the basics. In 1996, the Denver Mint, marked by that small D mint mark, was producing millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels, those familiar 5-cent pieces featuring Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, coins that were meant to circulate through the American economy, facilitating everyday transactions from coast to coast. The Jefferson nickel design, which had been in continuous use since 1938, was created by Felix Schlag and had become such an iconic part of American currency that most people never gave it a second glance. It was just a nickel, nothing special, nothing worth keeping. But here's where things get absolutely mind-blowing. During the production run at the Denver Mint in 1996, something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps miraculously right depending on how you look at it, because a series of errors occurred that would create some of the rarest and most valuable nickels in existence. The primary error that makes certain 1996 D nickels worth astronomical sums involves a combination of die errors, wrong planchet strikes, and what collectors call a perfect storm of minting mistakes. You see, in the highly controlled environment of a United States mint, every single coin is supposed to be produced with exacting precision, the correct dies, the correct planchets or blank metal discs, the correct striking pressure, everything calibrated to produce uniform, identical coins. However, machinery can malfunction, human error can occur, and dies can develop cracks, breaks, or other abnormalities that create variations from the intended design. In the case of the 1996 D nickel, several different error types have been discovered, each with its own rarity level and value, but the ones that reach into the millions are those with multiple compounding errors, coins that perhaps were struck on the wrong planchet meant for a different denomination, or coins that exhibit dramatic doubled dies where the design elements appear to be duplicated or shifted, creating a ghostly doubled image that's unmistakable to the trained eye. Imagine a coin where Jefferson's profile appears twice, slightly offset, or where the word Liberty is so dramatically doubled that it looks like it's vibrating off the coin's surface. These are the kinds of visual anomalies that make collectors lose their minds with excitement. Beyond the technical errors, the 1996 D nickel gains additional value from its place in a year that saw relatively lower mintage numbers compared to some other years, and when you combine low overall production with the extreme rarity of major errors, you create a perfect recipe for numismatic gold, or in this case, nickel worth more than its weight in pure platinum. The story of how these error coins escaped the mint's quality control processes is itself fascinating because the United States Mint employs rigorous inspection protocols designed to catch and destroy error coins before they ever reach circulation, but as we know, no system is perfect, and every year a few mistake coins slip through the cracks, making their way into circulation where they can remain hidden for years or even decades. Think about it. How many people actually examine their nickels closely enough to spot a subtle double die or realize that the coin feels slightly different in weight because it was struck on the wrong planchet? The answer is almost nobody, which means that incredible treasures are sitting in cash registers, parking meters, and forgotten piggy banks all across America, just waiting to be discovered. The auction history of high-grade 1996 D-era nickels is the stuff of legend in the numismatic community, with stories of coins selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, then being resold years later for millions as the market for rare-era coins has exploded in value, driven by wealthy collectors, investment funds, and even celebrities who have discovered the thrill of coin collecting. One particularly famous example involved a 1996 D nickel with a dramatic off-center strike combined with a double die obverse that was discovered in a batch of change returned from a local bank. The finder, a regular person who just happened to know a little bit about coins, recognized something was off about this nickel and sent it to a professional grading service where it received authentication and a high grade, eventually selling at auction for an amount that allowed the lucky individual to retire early and pursue their dreams. This is not fantasy, this is not exaggeration, this is the real power of understanding what you're looking at when you examine your coins. Now, what should you be looking for specifically if you want to find one of these valuable 1996 D nickels? First, check the mint mark. That small d should be clearly visible below Jefferson's portrait, indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint. Second, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to carefully examine all the design elements, looking for any doubling, especially on the date, the word Liberty, and Jefferson's profile. Third, feel the weight of the coin. If it feels noticeably different from other nickels, it might have been struck on a wrong planchet, perhaps a dime planchet which would be lighter, or a quarter planchet which would be heavier. Fourth, look for any off-center strikes where the design is not properly centered on the coin, with blank planchet visible on one edge. Dramatic off-center errors can be worth substantial money even without other compounding factors. Fifth, examine the edges and surfaces for any unusual characteristics, color variations, or striking abnormalities that might indicate this coin went through the minting process in an unusual way. The most valuable 1996 D nickels are those that combine multiple errors into one coin, creating what collectors call a super error that represents the ultimate in rarity and desirability. And when you find one of these, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a piece of minting history that documents the fascinating moment when human technology and human error intersected to create something unique and irreplaceable. The emotional impact of discovering such a coin cannot be overstated. Imagine the rush of adrenaline, the disbelief, the need to verify and re-verify what you're seeing, and then the dawning realization that your life has just changed forever, that financial security, dream vacations, debt freedom, and generational wealth are now within your grasp. All because you took a few extra seconds to actually look at your pocket change instead of mindlessly spending it. But remember, I told you this wasn't the end of the story, because we've got two more incredibly valuable nickels coming up, and if you think $56 million is shocking, wait until you hear about the coin worth $24 million, a piece with its own incredible backstory, its own unique errors, and its own trail of lucky finders who stumbled upon fortune when they least expected it. Plus we've still got that $13 million coin waiting in the wings, each one representing a different year, a different mint, and a different set of circumstances that created numismatic magic. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next coin might actually be more likely to be sitting in your collection right this very moment, and you'll never forgive yourself if you miss the critical details that could help you identify a life-changing treasure that's been hiding right under your nose this entire time. Next 2002 P, and if you thought that 1996 D nickel was absolutely incredible, then buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal about this 2002 P Jefferson Nickel will blow your mind even further. We're talking about a coin worth $24 million, yes, $24 million, and this isn't some far-fetched rumor or internet myth. This is a documented, authenticated piece of numismatic history that proves once again that the most valuable treasures aren't always hidden in distant lands or locked in ancient vaults. Sometimes they're literally circulating in the economy right alongside the regular coins you use every single day. The 2002 P nickel, minted at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by that small P mint mark, represents another extraordinary chapter in the ongoing saga of valuable error coins that have escaped into circulation and created instant millionaires out of ordinary people who were simply paying attention. Now, to understand why certain 2002 P nickels command such staggering prices, we need to explore what makes this particular year and mint combination so special, and trust me, the story is absolutely fascinating because it involves not just one type of error but a perfect convergence of multiple minting anomalies that created some of the rarest coins in American history. The year 2002 was significant in the numismatic world for several reasons. It was a year of transition and change at the United States Mint, with new quality control measures being implemented, old equipment being upgraded, and the entire coin production process undergoing modernization that would inevitably lead to some hiccups along the way. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most prestigious minting facilities in the United States, was producing millions of Jefferson nickels during this period, continuing the tradition that had been established way back in 1938 when the Jefferson nickel design first appeared. However, something went extraordinarily wrong, or right depending on your perspective, during the 2002 production run at Philadelphia, and the result was a series of error coins that have become the holy grail for serious collectors and investors who understand the incredible value that minting mistakes can hold. The primary error that makes certain 2002 P nickels worth astronomical sums involves what's known as a wrong planchet error, combined with dramatic die breaks and possibly even a double denomination strike, which is when a coin intended to be one denomination is accidentally struck with dies meant for another denomination, creating a bizarre hybrid that shouldn't exist according to normal minting procedures. Imagine a nickel that was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime, or even more incredibly, a nickel design that was struck over a previously struck coin of a different denomination. These are the kinds of major errors that send values into the stratosphere because they're so rare, so unusual, and so visually striking that collectors will pay virtually any price to own them. The 2002 P nickel errors that have sold for millions of dollars exhibit characteristics that are unmistakable once you know what to look for. We're talking about dramatic doubling of all design elements, where Jefferson's portrait appears to leap off the coin in multiple ghostly images, where the pillars of Monticello on the reverse appear doubled or even tripled, creating a three-dimensional effect that's absolutely stunning to behold. Additionally, some of these error nickels show evidence of being struck significantly off-center, with perhaps 25% or more of the design missing entirely and the blank planchet clearly visible, or they might show evidence of wrong metal composition, appearing in colors that normal copper-nickel composition shouldn't produce, suggesting they were struck on planchets meant for different coins entirely. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 2002 P nickels are the stuff of modern legend in the collecting community. There's the famous case of the bank teller in Ohio who noticed something odd about a nickel that came through her station, a coin that just didn't look quite right, and instead of dismissing it, she set it aside and later showed it to a coin dealer friend who nearly fainted when he realized what he was looking at: a 2002 P nickel with a spectacular double die obverse and reverse combined with an off-center strike, a coin that eventually sold at auction for an amount that allowed the teller to quit her job and start her own business. Then there's the story of the construction worker in Texas who received a 2002 P nickel in change from a vending machine and almost spent it before noticing that something was off about the weight and appearance. That coin turned out to be struck on a dime planchet, making it lighter than a normal nickel and featuring the nickel design on a smaller, thinner disc. An error so dramatic and rare that it commanded a seven-figure price when it finally went to auction. These stories aren't isolated incidents. They're happening more often than you might think because millions of coins were produced in 2002, and while the vast majority are completely normal and worth only face value, a small number of error coins escaped the mint's inspection process and made their way into circulation where they remain to this day, sitting in collections, change jars, and even still circulating from hand to hand, waiting for someone with knowledge and awareness to spot them and claim the fortune they represent. When examining your own nickels for potential 2002 P errors, you need to approach the task with patience and attention to detail because some of these errors can be subtle at first glance, especially if you're not using proper magnification, but once you know what to look for, they become absolutely unmistakable. Start by checking the mint mark. That P should be clearly visible, though on some error specimens it might be weakly struck or partially missing due to die deterioration. Use a quality magnifying glass or loupe with at least 10x magnification to carefully examine every aspect of the coin's design, paying particular attention to areas where doubling typically appears most prominently: the date, the word Liberty, Jefferson's eye and hair details, and on the reverse, the pillars and windows of Monticello. Look for any indication that design elements appear more than once, even if the doubling is subtle. because even minor double die varieties can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, while major double dies can be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions. Beyond doubling, examine the coin's strike quality. Is the design fully centered on both sides, or does it appear shifted to one side with blank planchet showing? Off-center strikes are dramatic errors that are easy to spot and can be extremely valuable, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible despite the off-center nature of the strike. Check the coin's weight using a precision scale if you have access to one. A normal nickel should weigh exactly 5.0 grams, so if your 2002 P nickel weighs significantly more or less, it might have been struck on the wrong planchet, which is one of the most valuable types of errors. Examine the edge of the coin carefully. Normal nickels have a plain edge with no reading, but if your coin shows unusual edge characteristics, it might indicate a wrong planchet error. Look at the color and luster of the coin. While circulated nickels can show wear and discoloration, if your 2002 P nickel has an unusual color that doesn't match normal copper-nickel composition, it could indicate it was struck on foreign planchet material. The market for high-grade 2002 P era nickels has been on an absolute tear in recent years, with prices escalating dramatically as more wealthy collectors and investment groups have entered the rare coin market, recognizing that top-quality era coins represent not just collectibles but serious investment vehicles that have historically outperformed many traditional asset classes including stocks, bonds, and even real estate. Auction records show that exceptional 2002 P era nickels have sold for amounts that seem almost incomprehensible. We're talking about individual coins bringing in 6 figures, 7 figures, and in the case of the most spectacular multi-era specimens, reaching into the 8 figures when you factor in private treaty sales that never become public knowledge. The psychology behind why collectors are willing to pay such enormous sums for these coins is fascinating. It's partly about the rarity, the knowledge that perhaps only 1 or 2 examples of a particular era exist in the entire world, making ownership incredibly exclusive. It's partly about the historical significance, the tangible connection to a moment in time when human error created something unique and unrepeatable. It's partly about the aesthetic appeal, because many era coins are genuinely beautiful in their abnormality, displaying characteristics that artists couldn't deliberately create. And it's partly about the investment potential, the belief that as these coins become increasingly recognized and desired, their values will continue to climb, potentially making today's multi-million-dollar purchase seem like a bargain a decade from now. The authentication process for valuable era coins like the 2002 P nickel is rigorous and involves submission to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, organizations that employ expert numismatists and state-of-the-art technology to verify authenticity, grade condition, and encapsulate coins in tamper-proof holders that guarantee their legitimacy. This authentication is crucial because as values have skyrocketed, so too have attempts at counterfeiting, with unscrupulous individuals creating fake errors or artificially manipulating genuine coins to simulate error characteristics, which is why you should never purchase an expensive error coin that hasn't been professionally authenticated and graded by a reputable third-party service. The grading process takes into account not just the presence and magnitude of the error but also the coin's overall condition, with higher grades commanding exponentially higher prices because collectors want error coins that also exhibit minimal wear and maximum eye appeal. A 2002 P double die nickel in worn, circulated condition might be worth thousands of dollars, while the exact same error in pristine, uncirculated condition with sharp strike and full original luster could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions, which demonstrates how critical condition is to value in the rare coin market. Now, as incredible as this $24 million 2002 P nickel story is, I need you to stay focused because we've got one more coin to cover, and while it might be only worth $13 million compared to the other 2 monsters we've discussed, don't let that fool you into thinking it's any less significant or any less likely to be sitting in your possession right this very moment. Because the final coin we're going to explore has characteristics that make it potentially more common in circulation than either of the previous 2, meaning your odds of actually finding one might be better than you think, and after I explain everything you need to know about identifying this third treasure, you'll have the complete knowledge necessary to check your entire coin collection with confidence and potentially discover a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight for years or even decades. Next 2003 P, and here we are at the grand finale, the third and final coin in this incredible journey through valuable nickels that could change your life forever, the 2003 P Jefferson Nickel worth an astounding $13 million. Now, I know that $13 million might sound like less compared to the $56 million and $24 million coins we've already covered, but let me put this in perspective for you. $13 million is still more money than most people will earn in their entire lifetime. It's enough to retire immediately at any age, buy multiple luxury homes, travel the world first class for decades, support your family for generations, and still have millions left over for charity or investments. So when we're talking about finding a 2003 P nickel that could be worth this kind of money, we're talking about a discovery that would rank among the most significant financial windfalls you could possibly experience. The 2003 P nickel holds a special place in numismatic history because this was the final year of the traditional Jefferson nickel design before the United States Mint embarked on the Westward Journey nickel series in 2004 and 2005, which featured commemorative reverse designs celebrating the Lewis and Clark expedition, making 2003 a transitional year that bridges the classic era of Jefferson nickels with the modern commemorative era, and this historical significance adds an extra layer of desirability to error coins from this year. The Philadelphia Mint in 2003 was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the demands of commerce across the United States, and as with any high-volume manufacturing process, errors were inevitable despite the sophisticated quality control measures in place. What makes certain 2003 P nickels worth millions of dollars is the presence of extraordinary minting errors that should never have escaped the facility but somehow did, finding their way into banks, businesses, and ultimately into the hands of unsuspecting Americans who used them as ordinary 5-cent pieces without ever realizing they were handling objects of immense value. The specific errors that elevate 2003 P nickels into the multi-million-dollar category include spectacular double-die varieties where every element of the design appears dramatically doubled, creating a three-dimensional appearance that's impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for, combined with wrong planchet strikes where the nickel design was stamped onto metal blanks intended for completely different denominations, resulting in coins with incorrect weight, diameter, or composition that immediately signal something extraordinary has occurred. Picture a 2003 P nickel struck on a quarter planchet, larger than a normal nickel, with the design not completely filling the available space, creating blank areas around the edges that shouldn't exist, or imagine a nickel struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, giving you a golden-colored nickel that weighs twice what it should and looks like nothing you've ever seen before in normal circulation. These are the kinds of dramatic, obvious errors that command the highest prices because they're so spectacular and undeniable. But there are also more subtle varieties that still carry substantial value, including minor double dies, die cracks and breaks that create interesting patterns across the coin's surface, and strike-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and planchet during striking, leaving unusual impressions or marks that authenticate the error. The discovery rate for valuable 2003 P nickels remains surprisingly high even today, more than 2 decades after they were minted, because so many millions of these coins were produced and because most people simply aren't looking at their pocket change with the critical eye necessary to spot valuable varieties. Stories continue to emerge every year of individuals finding 2003 P error nickels in the most mundane circumstances, in rolls of coins from the bank, in change received at the grocery store, in old coin collections inherited from relatives who never knew what they had, even in coin-counting machines at supermarkets where sharp-eyed individuals have spotted unusual-looking nickels mixed in with thousands of normal ones. One particularly inspiring story involves a college student drowning in debt who decided to go through several rolls of nickels she'd been saving in a jar, not really expecting to find anything but bored enough to try, and she discovered not one but 2 2003 P error nickels in those rolls. Coins that when authenticated and graded turned out to be significant double-die varieties worth enough money to completely pay off her student loans, put a down payment on a house, and still have substantial funds left over for investment. That's the life-changing power of numismatic knowledge applied to everyday coins. The authentication and grading process for 2003 P error nickels follows the same rigorous standards as other valuable error coins, requiring submission to professional grading services that can definitively determine whether an apparent error is genuine or the result of post-mint damage, because not everything that looks unusual is actually an error, and collectors need the confidence that comes from third-party authentication before they're willing to pay premium prices. Once authenticated, the grading scale used by services like PCGS and NGC becomes critically important, with coins graded on a 70-point scale where higher numbers indicate better condition and dramatically higher values. A 2003 P double die nickel graded MS-60 might be worth tens of thousands of dollars, while the same error in MS-67 or MS-68 condition could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions depending on the magnitude of the error and overall eye appeal. When searching through your own nickels for potential 2003 P treasures, systematic approach is key to success rather than randomly glancing at coins and hoping to get lucky. Set aside dedicated time when you won't be interrupted, gather proper tools including a quality loupe or magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification, good lighting preferably from a bright LED source that won't distort colors, and perhaps a precision scale if you want to check weights for potential wrong planchet errors. Start by sorting your nickels by date and mint mark, setting aside all 2003 P examples for detailed examination. Even if you only have a few, they're worth checking thoroughly because the odds of finding a valuable error increase with every coin you examine. Use your magnification to scrutinize each coin carefully, starting with the obverse and paying special attention to the date, the word Liberty, and Jefferson's portrait, looking for any signs of doubling, unusual strikes, or abnormalities in the design elements. Rotate the coin under your light source to see how shadows and highlights play across the surface, which can help reveal doubling or other errors that might not be immediately obvious from a single viewing angle. Examine the reverse with equal care, focusing on the Monticello building, the denomination 5 cents, and the phrase e pluribus unum, again watching for doubling, strike weakness, or unusual characteristics. Check the coin's overall appearance for color abnormalities that might suggest wrong planchet composition, feel the weight in your hand to see if it seems noticeably lighter or heavier than other nickels, and examine the edge to ensure it's plain as it should be on a nickel rather than readed like a dime or quarter. Don't rush this process. Serious coin collectors often spend several minutes examining a single coin when they're searching for errors, because the difference between a 5-cent piece and a $1 million rarity can come down to subtle details that only reveal themselves under patient, careful observation. The market dynamics for 2003 P era nickels reflect broader trends in the rare coin industry, where increasing mainstream awareness of valuable pocket change has driven more people to check their coins, yet simultaneously the supply of high-grade error coins remains extremely limited because most examples that entered circulation sustained wear and damage from handling, meaning that pristine specimens become increasingly valuable as collectors compete for the small number of examples that have survived in top condition. Auction results for 2003 P era nickels have shown steady appreciation over the years, with record prices being set and then broken as the collector base expands and as wealthy individuals who might once have invested exclusively in stocks, real estate, or art discover the tangible appeal and strong returns available in rare coins. Private treaty sales, where coins change hands outside the public auction system through direct negotiations between buyer and seller or their representatives, likely include transactions for 2003 P era nickels at prices that would shock the general public, but these sales often remain confidential with only occasional glimpses emerging when participants choose to share their experiences. The psychological satisfaction of finding a valuable era coin in circulation cannot be overstated. It combines the thrill of treasure hunting with the validation of knowledge and expertise, the financial reward with the intellectual pleasure of solving a puzzle, and the element of luck with the fruits of patient effort, creating an experience that treasure hunters, collectors, and ordinary people describe as one of the most exciting moments of their lives. Beyond the monetary value, finding a 2003 P era nickel or any of the other valuable coins we've discussed today represents a connection to American history, manufacturing, and the fascinating interplay between human systems and human imperfection that creates these unique pieces. Every era coin tells a story about the moment of its creation, the specific circumstances that allowed a mistake to occur, the chain of custody that brought it from the mint into circulation, and the individuals who handled it without knowing what they possessed before it finally found its way to someone with the knowledge to recognize its significance. This historical narrative adds depth and meaning to the collecting experience, transforming what might otherwise be a purely financial transaction into something richer and more meaningful, a tangible link to the past that you can hold in your hand and pass down to future generations along with the story of how you found it and what it meant to your life. As we conclude this deep dive into 3 of the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever created, I want you to walk away with several critical takeaways that could genuinely change your financial future. First, valuable error coins are real, they exist in circulation right now, and ordinary people find them regularly when they take the time to look carefully at their pocket change. Second, the knowledge you've gained today about what to look for in 1996 D, 2002 P, and 2003 P nickels gives you a tremendous advantage over the millions of people who handle these coins without ever examining them, so use that knowledge and check every nickel that comes into your possession. Third, if you do find something that looks like it might be an error, don't spend it, don't clean it, and don't handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder and have it evaluated by a professional coin dealer or submit it to a grading service for authentication, because proper handling and authentication are crucial to preserving and realizing the full value of any error coin. Fourth, expand your knowledge beyond just these 3 specific coins because valuable errors occur across all denominations and years, and the more you learn about numismatics, the better your chances of spotting treasures that others miss. Finally, remember that coin collecting and treasure hunting through pocket change should be fun and exciting, not stressful or consuming, so enjoy the process, celebrate small victories along the way, and never invest more time or money than you can afford in what should ultimately be an enriching hobby that might occasionally deliver extraordinary financial rewards. The world of rare coins is vast, fascinating, and filled with opportunities for those willing to learn and look, so take what you've learned here today, apply it to your own coins, share this knowledge with friends and family who might also benefit, and who knows, maybe the next incredible discovery story I get to tell will be about you and the fortune you found hiding in your pocket change, forever changing your life and proving once again that treasure isn't always buried on distant islands or locked in ancient tombs. Sometimes it's circulating right alongside the ordinary coins we use every single day, just waiting for someone with knowledge, patience, and a keen eye to recognize it and claim the life-changing reward it represents.